But the part of this which is so interesting is if we've taken the Bible and went through various stories and came up from long ago to see the description of a tabernacle which we've equated to the human brain because of the medical information we've developed, and then we've moved through various stages of this labyrinth into the recesses of the mind, and we have come to the point of crucifixion, which is the ultimate separation. And that introduces us to a whole new idea, and the idea is, are we ready here, you and I, to be part of the actual implementation of the energy? In other words, there has to be a point, and as interesting as this stuff may be, and as much fun as it might be to find different books and things that document this, there has to be an end somehow to learning. There has to be a graduation time. There has to be a point, if you go to college, when you stop studying and you go and you start practicing what you've learned. And here then, to me, this point of crucifixion is starting to get us who are really doing this seriously to that spot where you can sense that you are closing in on the graduation time. You've learned that it is the brain. You've learned that it is the electrical circuitry of the brain. You've learned that this is where all of your conscious connection to universal things will take place. And then you get to the point you start to see that the movement of the story to the point of crucifixion, resurrection, and then what they call Pentecost is beautifully proportioned to allow you to experience that and be part of it. Of course, the problem with it is people who are in the religious circles in our culture and in the society that we live in are very frightened by anything that starts to talk about experience. It's okay to study things, and it's okay to read things, and it's fine to say, well, the Holy Ghost is coming or Jesus is coming back. But if you really get to a point where somebody says this is going to happen tomorrow, that person instantly becomes a kook. It's okay for priests and ministers and religious people to say this for thousands of years. Jesus is coming soon. If somebody says he'll be here 3:30 Friday afternoon, they will arrest the guy and put him into a crazy place somewhere, and that would be with the blessings of all the religious people. So in other words, we have always found that this stuff is to teach and to read about, but not to actually become involved in. And so now here we get to the point where what we've been learning about is, you know, you have to come to grips with, are you prepared to actually get involved in this? Are you prepared actually for this situation to occur? Let's take a look, a teeny bit of a review, and see where we are and what I'm talking about. If you go to page 808 in the Bible, and you'll be on Matthew chapter 28, and in Matthew chapter 28, you come to a point where the resurrection has taken place. Well, the resurrection is not something that you should look at as a historical fact. The resurrection is something that you should look at as a fact of consciousness. It is your resurrection. It has been your crucifixion, and the crucifixion is a separation. The separation is a separation from the physical body through meditation. And then the resurrection takes place. See? And so the storyline is built around electrical activity in the human brain. That's what this is, because if you get right down to thinking about this, everything that occurs in your lifetime occurs via electrical activity of the human brain. Nothing else happens. There are functions of the body, but not functions of thought, consciousness, fear, hope, love. All of that functions as an electrical apparatus in the human brain. So in Matthew 28:10, the resurrection has taken place according to the story, and there Jesus is saying, don't be afraid, tell everybody, tell my friends, tell brethren, as I say, go into Galilee, and there shall they see me. There's a direct statement there that you are to go into Galilee, and there you will see the one who has risen. Okay? Fine. That's good. What is so interesting about that is when you pick up the material that I've given you, and you go to page 56 in that material, and you look halfway down the page, at a point where it says Matthew 28:7. And many of you who are watching on television now have this material, so please follow along with us. Open to page 56 of that material that you have. And there you'll see that the word Galilee, and I've taken this, and it's printed right out of the Christian dictionary, the word Galilee means circuit. Circuit. So here, Jesus is telling, according to the words in the Bible, hey, I am going and I'll tell you where you can see me. Go into the circuit. Go into the circuit. Now take a look at page 57 in the material that you were given. And if you look at page 57, and right at the top of the page, you see that the word circuit is a closed circular line, so forth, a closed path followed by an electric current, okay? Important derivatives and so forth. And if you look at important derivatives of the word circuit, you come down, and lo and behold, you'll find in the next to the last line of that second paragraph, the God of doors, and of beginning of a year, and Hinayana and Mahayana from the Buddhists. And in Buddhism, the way, the mode of knowledge. And Jesus says the way is narrow, and few there be who find it. See? And then if you look at the next word down below, that ion, and you think of ion, an atom or a group of atoms that has acquired a net electric charge by gaining or losing one or more electrons. And then if you look, important derivatives of ion are circuit. Circuit. So all of this is talking about the electrical circuitry of the human brain. And the Bible is saying to you, look, don't be afraid. I'll tell you where you can find me. That energy that has risen within you through this meditative process of crucifixion or separation can be found in the circuit. Can be found in the circuit, and the circuit is the human brain. And there's where the statement is made to you, see. So there are your instructions. When this crucifixion or this separation, this crucifixion, and the crucifixion is used not only because of the sun being crucified on December 21st and 22nd on the solstice, but because the human body, the head part is the top of the cross, the shoulders are the cross parts of the cross, and the trunk is the bottom part of the cross. The crucifixion, the tree on the tree, is on your body. It's the human body which is the cross. And so this crucifixion, so when this happens, the serpent energy, the woman has gone to the fornix. See, Mary Magdalene, H-U-R, the Hur, which is also the dark-eyed woman, which is the serpent, the Kundalini, all of these names interchange, has gone to the fornix. And then the statement is made, go into the circuit, in meditation, and there you shall see him. And that's the promise, okay? But, it's so interesting where Jesus says, at that time you will know I am in you, and then you find that he says, I'm going into Galilee, and the word Galilee means circuit. See? So you have something written. So, well, gee, who would know about electrical circuits, computer circuits back then? People who were an advanced civilization who actually wrote this. I am absolutely convinced in my head that the people who wrote this are an advanced civilization. They're not people who were, that we consider as the people who resided in the desert at the time. An advanced civilization who were very well knowledgeable about electrical circuitry, computerized things, and so forth and so on. So you have to know where to look for him, see? And this is the problem with religion today. Religion today, the people haven't a clue. Where do I look? What do I do? We were talking a few moments ago about, how you can artificially stimulate the brain. You can artificially stimulate the brain electrically and cause some of these things to happen. You might have visions or whatever. You can artificially stimulate the brain with drugs and so forth. And you can almost get to a point where you're striving to get through your meditation. The problem is, in those types of things, it's like putting somebody in the middle of some place where you have no idea who to see, who to talk to, where to go, what to look for, and so forth. That's why understanding this is so important, and allowing it to happen naturally is so important. We found as part of this enlightenment, people are taking melatonin all over the place. Well, that's like sacrificing animals. You know, they're reading the thing literally. You don't go to a store necessarily to have to take a melatonin from an animal. You produce the melatonin within yourself from the darkroom meditation. But let me just show you an interesting point of what I'm talking about, where the Bible gives a description of how people do not recognize that which is right in the midst of them, which is this Christ energy, or this electrical energy now, which has resurrected out of the crucifixion and gone into the circuits of the brain. If you look on page 862, and you come to Luke, and in Luke chapter 24, and verse 15, okay? And in Luke chapter 24 and verse 15, there's an interesting statement. It says, it came to pass while they communed together. Now this is talking about in the story of the disciples of Jesus. He's been crucified, he's resurrected, they're walking along, they're talking, isn't it a nice day? And it says, Jesus drew near and went with them, but their eyes were holden, and that they should not know him. In other words, here he is right in the midst of them, and they didn't recognize him. Here he is right there, and they couldn't tell. See, the story is not a real story. It's not talking about people really walking down a street, and this guy comes right between them, and they don't know who he is. It's trying to show you that right in the very midst of your brain, your mind, your psyche, your personality, is this energy, and people don't recognize where it is. They don't know where it is. See? And then look, the second thing to understand about this is most of us who get involved, and many of us come through the Hindu and the Buddhist connection with this, which have a lot of tremendous points of, but we're looking for some kind of a spiritual thing. We're looking for some kind of a thing which, is kind of a, we don't know how to describe it, but it's kind of a black hole of consciousness, and that's not what this is. This is just like you. The people who live on other places which you call angels are people. They're human beings, just like you, of a very advanced race and a very advanced civilization, who have control at the right hemisphere of the brain, who are not working with 10% of the cells on the left side, but who are working with 30, 40, 50% of the cells, which takes a person who is just like you or me, who then, instead of going through that door, would say, no, I'm not going to go that way, I'm going to go this way, and go right through the wall and go out into the street. How is that possible? Say, but it is possible. Let me just give you an idea how this is described in the Bible. Right where you are, Luke 24. If you go down, and you'll see in Luke 24, verse 36, and as they spoke, Jesus himself stood in the midst of them. All of a sudden, he appears. Where did he come from? I mean, he didn't even come down the stairs. He's just there. How did he get there? Say, well, what is absolutely, when you start to think of something like that, and you say, well, that's not possible. Think of yourself maybe, or think of people 100 years ago talking about computers, and think of people 200 years ago talking about electric lights, or talking about television, or calculators, and all of these things. None of that stuff is possible. But yet now you don't even bother thinking about it, because but here, a human being suddenly appears amidst a group of people. Where did he come from? And then look what he says. Hey, he said, look in verse 30. What are you worried about? Why are you frightened? Look here. I got hands. I got feet. Look at it. I got flesh and bones. I'm not a spook. I'm not a ghost. Here I am. I can just do things that you can't do. But the important thing to remember is that this same book said in John 14:12, look, he that believes, the works that I do, he shall do, and greater works than these he shall do. So in other words, there is a possibility for you to be in that same position. Disease that we see run rampant and we're trying to control is simply because we are ignorant as to how to deal with our own bodies and how to deal with the communion of our bodies with the universe. We just don't understand it because we've never studied it, because we haven't been allowed to study it, because religion has held us dwelling in this Disney-esque type of fairyland where we have not ever dealt with reality. We cannot deal with reality. And so we've always looked at these things as a spiritual thing. There is no such thing as a spiritual thing. It doesn't exist. It's all electronics. It's all science. It's quantum. Everything has an explanation. Everything is governed by a universal law. And once you learn how to operate it, once you learn how it operates within you, you become part of it. See? But here we are grown people. Today is Sunday morning. There are millions of billions of people sitting in rooms, something like this. There are people standing up with robes and pointed and funny hats, and they're going and doing all different things, and they're throwing water around, and all of this, and they haven't any idea, how does this work? What's supposed to happen? What's going to happen? And the only explanation is, don't worry about it now. It'll all come out when you die. What? You know, who is there? Who is there to say, hey, it didn't work? That's a good deal. I mean, that's a very good kind of a deal, you know. I'll take care of you. You just pay me in advance, and then you'll collect yours after you die. What a deal. That's silly. It's absolutely silly. So now you have to decide for yourself, would you be willing to cross the line here? You're getting to the point now where you can put all of your books aside. You can put all of the writings that you've treasured aside, because you'll find out they all become absolutely irrelevant. I don't care if it's Deepak Chopra, Pope John, it doesn't make any difference who it is that you're talking about. It becomes irrelevant, because once you hit and once you angle to Orion and you make contact, what if any of these people know? It's irrelevant. There is not a human being who is standing on this earth who is not part of that, who knows anything about this whatsoever, who has ever experienced it. And they're telling you all of this stuff, and you're running around and you collect all these books and say, oh, this guy said this, and this woman said this, and look, and isn't this wonderful? Not one of them has ever angled to Orion and could say to you, watch me. And they'll appear in your midst, or watch me go through a wall. Not one of them. Tell them, the next time somebody says, I know all about this stuff, I got it all figured out, say, go through the wall. And if they can't go through the wall, don't tell me about it. Don't tell me about it. So what has happened here is Amen. Is that good? Amen has left the fornix and entered the circuit. And one of the things that you want to look at is when you enter into the circuit of the brain, and for those of you who work with computers, you'll understand this, what you get involved in are what are called logic circuits. And that's where Amen is. See? So now there's a change in you. There's something coming down on you. But what do? Say, okay, I've gone through the understanding of the temple. I realize it's the Dura Mater and all of that kind of business. I understand that. And I've gone through the Amen, and I've gone through the fornix, and I understand all of these things are in my brain. But now what? What do? You know, and then I've got to the point of the crucifixion. I realize the crucifixion is something of consciousness. It's not a real thing. It's not a real thing. This is something of consciousness. Come on up, right up here to your appointed seat. I understand all of this, say, and I have no problem with any of this stuff. But now what do? Because I've taken part in the crucifixion, because I've separated, you know, and I realize that when I separate in crucifixion, then that energy rises up and so forth. Well, you know, all of that stuff is on paper, but now, what about me? What do? What do you do? You come here on Tuesday night and you sit in the dark, and then somebody plays bells on the thing, or gongs go off, or some music, and you're sitting here, and then you get up and you go home and you watch a ball game or whatever you do. What has happened? See? But you don't understand what you're doing to the circuitry. You don't understand that each time you're building receptors. You don't understand that each time you know what you're doing. It's just like when you take your car, you can't, if you've got to charge your battery up, you can't touch it and then walk away. You've got to wait there until it's charged. You've got to do things, and this is what you're doing. You're putting the electronics in your brain into position to carry out this work that's going to be done, and you're going to do it. I'm telling you right now, but I don't really know, even if you might be frightened of what's going to happen. I don't know. I mean, because as soon as you start talking about this stuff, the first thing some of these people out there would do is start looking at, you know, the people going up on the spaceship, the Hale-Bopp. In fact, there's a couple of real good cartoons I put up on the wall out there about that. But I mean, there is a point where you've got to decide, do you want to be a part of this? Or do you want to stay with everybody here in Forked River and go to church and die and then collect whatever you're supposed to get? I don't think so. I don't want any part of that. I don't want a bit of part of it. So what then do you do? The crucifixion takes place in your meditation. The resurrection takes place, and it says that the energy leaves the fornix, which is the tomb, and goes into the circuit of the brain, and that's where you're supposed to go. So you go into the circuit of the brain via your meditation, and now what? Now what happens? What's supposed to be next? Okay. First of all, what we've got to understand is in the utilization of the word Jerusalem. Okay, we know, for instance, that there is not, I mean, I would, let people go there on a vacation. Can you imagine such a place to go on a vacation? I wouldn't go. You get on a bus and somebody blows your head off. What a vacation. I'm going to Atlantic City. I ain't going to this place under any circumstance. The holy place to me is the sands. If you hit 3 sevens, that's what the holy, not that place. That's a terrible place to go and hang out with people. But, you know, that would sound very almost blasphemous, wouldn't it? To say such a terrible thing. This is a terrible place. It is. It's no place to bring up kids. I wouldn't want to go. But why do I say that? The reason that I will tell you anything that I say is because the Bible says it. That's why. If I sit here and I make fun of the fact that people say Jesus is coming back, the reason I make fun of it is because the Bible says he's not. And so I said, well, who am I going to believe? Am I going to believe them? Or are I going to believe the book? I'll believe the book, because they don't believe the book. They do not believe this book. The basis of the fundamentalist religion is Jesus is coming back to set up his kingdom on this earth. And the Bible says the kingdom does not come with observation. Luke 17:20, my kingdom is not of this world. I mean, would you come back here? Get out of here. Are you crazy? I'm not going back there. I'm going to Hawaii. Why? Okay. So anyhow, but let's take a look. So because this is what I'm telling you now. What I'm bringing you to is enough reading, enough studying, enough collecting papers from me. Because it's getting too much paper. Pretty soon you're not going to be able to come here because you can't carry the paper in here with you. So we've got to get to the point where you start then experiencing and start being touched by this and not be afraid of it. Not be afraid. And then please, when you do this, take everything that I have ever told you and put it aside. Take every book, everything you're involved in, anything you think is important, and totally put it aside, because it's all over. Because then you're going to angle to Orion, and it's a whole new world. And it's a world that nobody who has ever written a piece of paper on this earth knows anything about. Okay? The rules that apply here do not apply there. So what can they know? But this is the point. Go to page 953, and let's take a look at this word Jerusalem. Page 953, and we'll take a look at this word Jerusalem. And it's in the book of Galatians, and it's in Galatians 4. In Galatians chapter 4, in verse 25, the Apostle Paul, who never even lived. Is this a riot? This guy is the most prestigious writer of the Bible. Never existed, He's part of Peter, Paul, and Mary fame, and he never even made it here. If anybody ever wrote this, the closest they could come to a name was an individual named Apollonius of Greece. Okay, but nonetheless. For this, he's talking about something that occurred between Abraham and Sarah and Hagar. For this, Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and answers to Jerusalem, which now is and is in bondage with her children. I mean, it's talking about a physical town that's a disaster, just like the physical Jerusalem is today. These people are in terrible bondage to this time. They don't know whether they can go to a store. They don't know whether they can get on a bus. It's shooting and killing and all this. Over what? Religion, of course, but that's all it is. But that's nonetheless. But look at verse 26. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free and is the mother of us all. And your mother's name is Pia Mater, tender mother. Every single one of you sitting in this room has inside of your head a beautiful structure called Pia Mater, tender mother. Doesn't make any difference whether you believe it or not. It's there. Okay? And you also have Dura Mater, who is hard mother, who the Bible calls the strange woman. Not to intercourse there, but to be one with Pia Mater. So, Jerusalem, which is above, is free and is the mother of us all. So then we are talking about Pia Mater. We are talking about this place of consciousness, this place of beauty, this place within me. I am going up to Jerusalem, and that's why the city of Jerusalem has 12 gates. There are 12 gates of the city to take care of the apertures of the 12 cranial nerves. Okay? Jerusalem, which is above, is free and is the mother of us all. So now we understand where Jerusalem is. Pia Mater, it is the brain. So then we look, and we see on page 863 in the book of Luke, and this is what your instructions are today on May 4th, 1997. Those of you who have gone through the crucifixion through meditation of consciousness, here are your instructions. They are contained in Luke chapter 24. And if we will look in verse 49, the instructions come from Jesus, who says, "And behold, I send the promise of my Father upon you, Gloria, upon you, Joan, upon you, Sarah, upon you, Albert, upon each one of you. You're going to send the glory of the promise upon me. What must I do? But tarry," that means wait in the city of Jerusalem until you be endued with power from on high. Wow. Because now, you see the difference of knowing where to go. You want to get a bus and go riding through the streets of Jerusalem in that city? Or do you want to wait in the city of Jerusalem, which is above and is the mother of us all, until you are endued with power from on high? Wait there in the upper room. And this is a time of waiting that we call Pentecost. It's the 50th day. Okay? Now, so go to page 888, which is a very fitting page for this particular event. And it's the book of Acts. So what have we learned here? We've learned here that the Jerusalem where the Pentecost took place never occurred in a city, but it occurs in the human mind. Oh, wait a minute. How do I know that? Well, if Jesus is to be trusted, he's the one that says, "At that time you will know I am in the Father, you and me, and I in you." The kingdom is within you. And this book says, Jerusalem is within you, the mother, the Pia Mater. Wait there until you are endued with power. Now you've submitted through the crucifixion, and you know where to go, and you know how and where to wait. And look what it says in Acts chapter 2 in the Bible. In Acts chapter 2, and look at verse 2. "And when the day of Pentecost was come, they were all with one accord in one place. Suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind. It filled all the house, and there appeared unto them cloven tongues like fire. It sat upon each of them. They were all filled with the Holy Ghost and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance." Now it's going to get deep. Now it's going to get deep, because now you've come to this thing of Pentecost, but now you know where it really does happen. See? What? Do you think that something as magnificent as that would have been a one-time shot for those people hanging out in some loft somewhere? Or is this something for the universe to experience? This is a Pentecost for everyone to experience. Where? In Jerusalem, in the upper room. Wait until this power comes down upon you. This is exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. See? But Pentecost has another name. Pentecost is not called Pentecost. Pentecost is an English name. Pentecost is Shavuot. Shavuot. Shavuot is what they really experienced. Shavuot. And It's the Feast of Pentecost. It's a Jewish holiday celebrated in the late spring. But this is what is interesting about Shavuot. And if you look on page 59, look on page 59, and you that are out there also, look, I've got it here. Yeah, thank you. Look on your page 59 also, okay, at Shavuot. And if you see Shavuot, it says, and the last line, it talks about how Shavuot is celebrated, Pentecost is celebrated. In addition, a dairy meal symbolic of milk and honey is eaten. Very important. Ho, ho, ho! What have we got here? Shavuot, Pentecost, milk and honey. Why? Well, of course, those of you who have smiled know exactly why. But for those of you who haven't, go to page 4 of the material that I've given you. And on page 4 of the material that you have and that you have been sent, that you have, you'll find this milk and honey related to manna. Manna coming from mannitol, which means sugar. Manna coming from mannitol, which means sugar. So then we realizing that Jerusalem, Pia Mater, is in the brain, and in the human mind. We look for brain sugar on page 5 of the material. We find that brain sugar is galactose. And then we look on page 6, and lo and behold, we find the word galactic pertaining to milk. Milky sugar. And what is that? That is the material that stimulates and operates your brain. And so what is Pentecost? Coming from above. Jerusalem coming from above. The activities of the brain. And so in this particular Pentecost of Shavuot, they celebrated by eating a mixture of milk and honey, or galactose. To celebrate what? That which is the stimulation and the feeding of the human brain, the human mind, where all of this comes from. And to celebrate also the galaxy that you live in, which is
Milky Way.
Milky Way. and this milk and sugar is the milk and honey of the Bible. I will bring you up to a land flowing with milk and honey. Where do you have a land flowing with milk and honey in your body? Yes. It's your brain. What's it called? Galactose. It's a milky, sugary substance. And it's your brain sugar. It's what stimulates you. It's what makes it work. So then that becomes, very interesting to some of you, some of us who have come out of this charismatic fundamentalist movement. Now you've come full circle, see? But now you've arrived at the point where you no longer fix yourself on symbols. Now we've brought this to the point where you found the holy city is indeed your brain with the 12 gates. And you found that the holy city is indeed the Jerusalem which is above of Pia Mater. And now you found that even in their celebration of the ancient people, of this Pentecost where the fire comes down and people speak in tongues and all of this thing happens, comes down through Shavuot, and that they would eat milk and honey. And you realize that milk and honey is that brain sugar which would stimulate the entire brain to be in communion with this. This is something we'll talk about a little bit. Well, let me tell you what this is. This is something, I don't know how many of you have ever studied this, but there's a word called alchemy. Alchemy. A-L-C-H-E-M-Y, and it is actually the origination of chemistry and contains part of the word chemistry. And it is, what it talks about is changing a lower element into a higher element. I don't want to get too deep into it now, but alchemy does not say that something comes from nothing. Alchemy does not say that. Alchemy says you change that which is the lower into that which is the higher. You take a baser material, you change it into gold, because what alchemy says is that there are those things which become gold inherent in everything. Well, beyond that, we'll let it go. The fire and all of that kind of business has to do with it. But I don't want to bother with that right now. So we wait in the upper room in Jerusalem for power to come down upon us. Okay? Now, you remember, could I have the lights? You remember, if the power is going to come down upon us, I don't want you walking thinking, well, we're waiting for some kind of God or some kind of hocus pocus, because then you're going to wait with the rest of them in church, and you don't want to wait there. Anyhow, what is going to happen is you have a symbol in the sky, which is fornax. And the fornax is delta fornax. And so what then this is the power coming down upon you is delta fornax, just like that. While you are waiting in the upper room, you are a delta fornicus, which is the human brain. And so there's the completion then of the power. Okay? That's the symbol that you see, which is the Jewish star, the holy star. And nobody ever really has figured out what, you're getting a good shot at that shot. Nobody's figured out, why is that such an important symbol? Well, you see, if you take this off of here, this symbol here is delta. The triangular symbol is delta. And you have that part of your brain, which is the fornix, which is delta fornicus. And then you have the constellation in the sky, which is fornax, which would be delta fornix. So that power coming down from delta fornax, that power going up from you. So there you are in the upper room with Jerusalem and Pentecost, and there's the power coming down, and the two intersect at delta and create that which is, which is the symbol. Okay. All right. So we can. There you go. Turn the lights back on. Now, there are two forms of consciousness, two stages of consciousness here that I want to talk to you about. You have in Greek you have 4 stages of consciousness. Okay? You have earth, which is your brain. You have water, which is the second stage. You have air, which is the third stage, and you have fire. Now, what did you notice when in this story about the upper room? Suddenly there came a mighty rushing wind, which is the air. Okay? And then after the mighty rushing wind, there came the tongues of fire, sitting down on top of their head. Okay? So we have those top 2 stages. You have the air, wind, you have the fire, which is the tongues. And if you look in a dictionary, you'll find like a blaze, a flare, a fire, is an incandescence glow. It's brilliance of illumination. What this is really talking about is that from the 3rd stage of consciousness, this is the same thing as to when in the old days you used to get baptized and you'd stick your head in water. Okay, and then you'd come up into the air, and then you're supposed to be endued by the Holy Spirit, which is the fire. This is all Greek stuff which people misread. There is no reason for any human being other than to wash yourself to get in the water and actually get your head wet. There is no reason for that. It does nothing but get your head wet, and if you get in polluted water, you get sick. Did you ever get baptized and then you start snorting and snotting and you got a cold and all that? It's because the water was dirty. Okay, so what does it mean? It means you take that which is your brain, you take it into the 2nd stage of consciousness, which is water, where you start to separate from thought. You rise up into the 3rd stage, and then you're touched by fire. This is what Pentecost, this is what this is talking about. Let me make it clear. There was no group of people sitting in a room where the windows blew open and said, what is that? It's a mighty rushing wind. Oh, and then there's little tongues of fire sitting over their heads. I mean, come on. Would you stay there? I would not stay there. I'd say, this is an attack of some kind. But when you understand the upper room is your head, Jerusalem is your consciousness, the mighty rushing wind is the 3rd stage of consciousness, which is then followed by the tongues of fire, which is the 4th stage of consciousness, which is the progression of your meditation. All right? So that's what it is. So what you see then is a movement within you as you wait in Jerusalem for the power of this sign. And as Jesus says in Matthew 6:22, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. So that's the Pentecost you see. The Pentecost of milk and honey. The Pentecost of galactose. The Pentecost of brain sugar. The true upper room Pentecost. The Pentecost of the mind. The Pentecost of consciousness. The alchemist fire roars to change that which is the lower element into that which is the higher element. That's what it is. Okay? It burns off the dross to reveal the gold. That's what it is. Okay? So it's all talking about. So isn't this wonderful? Because if you understand this, now you can start taking part in Pentecost. You don't have to read about it in Acts or say, oh, that was wonderful. What happened to them? Who cares what happened to them? They're all dead. I don't want to know about what happened to them. What happens to you? You're alive. You experience this. You is for your family. And isn't it great? You don't have to go out. You don't have to run out in the street. What do? You go into a dark room. Who can see you? So what is to be afraid of? Be part of it. Okay? All right. There was a statement made by a T.S. Eliot. And he's talking about speaking in tongues, and he said, "Of the dead is tongued with fire beyond the language of the living." See, and I'll tell you something. If you go out in here and talk to any of the people that live up along this road, and you tell them you come here, they will tell you that I speak in strange tongues. They will tell you that. You know, the stuff is fantasy. See, but this is what I want you to tell them. You look at your papers, you look at your television, you look in your house at your family, you look inside of you the way you feel, even though you can't tell anybody. You can't tell anybody at your church. You can't tell anybody even maybe in your family. But the handwriting is on the wall. Okay? We were talking to somebody we met down at the hotel there, and this person said they can't get up here because they live so far away, but they don't even know what I'm talking about, but they know just the way they feel of something that's going on. So the fire comes down in the fourth stage of consciousness, activated in your meditation. All right? So you're celebrating and you're taking part in Pentecost by following what is said. Now, if you will recall the Coptic key, and don't think, because we don't necessarily dwell on that we forgot any of that. This is a very vital part of this. You didn't learn the Coptic key so we could go through it and say, well, you remember that? Yeah, well, we used to talk about that. It's something that you have. It's something that you have in your materials because we go back to it, see? We even had a ceremony. We turned out all the lights and everybody come up and they got their key. Well, because it was special. But most people didn't realize how special. But it is very special. There was the sign of the 8. And Charles, I don't know if you can focus. There's the sign of the 8. Remember the sign of the 8? And do you remember, and I don't know how many of you understand this, but we tracked the discovery of 8 planets. Somebody wrote me a letter the other day and said, well, you know, how do you justify if they find later that this is a wobbling brown dwarf and not a planet? I don't care if it's a pimple. Who cares? What do I care what it is? I don't care if it's a whole Henry bar floating around. It's irrelevant. That's not, the Bible didn't say you're going to find 8 planets. It said Pegasus. And all of these things then started happening. Remember, we tracked them from Pegasus. And we tracked it to Virgo. We tracked the whole story right around to the 7th. And we all thought, gee, that would be something if the 7th was the pineal gland. That would be Leo. And lo and behold, they found the 7th. And it was Leo. Remember that? How are they going to wrap this up? What will be the 8th? Well, according to the Bible, the final trumpet sounds. And the 8th planet was what? Cygnus, the trumpeter swan. Pretty good. And did you notice something else? That after they found the 8th, it stopped cold. Stopped cold. The message is given to you people. And the message is going out. I'll tell you what. In fact, some of you who have ordered tapes here, I'm going to ask you just be patient because we're transferring all of this responsibility over to these people down in who live in, where are they, Barnegat, and they're doing all the tapes for us now. And so I can't do them anymore. And now we can get out more of this material, and so the stuff is going out to people. But this is a wonderful thing. I mean, what more? The entire story, from Pegasus all through Virgo, around to Leo, and to the trumpet, it was all fulfilled right in the sky. And we followed it step by step and documented everything through the scientists that found it all. And then it stopped. It was over. The 8 was done. There was no need anymore, see, for that particular time. And so this was an exciting thing, and you were part of it. And you know what's, and please don't take this the wrong way, most of us, it didn't mean anything. Because we didn't really focus. And it really won't until you're in this upper room and the wind comes through and so forth. And I understand all that. Those were people. But remember, it came from the book of I-E-O-U, the Coptics, the Egyptians. And then we were given a word, and the word we were given was azozio. And we broke down that word. Azo means light, and zeo, root of the word zeolite, means filtered by crystal. Who gave this? Jesus gave this to the Coptics thousands of years ago. Said, hey, pal, I want you to look at this symbol. See this symbol? These 8, this means something. And I want you to say this word one time, azozio, light filtered by crystal. And then he said, I want you to hold this cipher in your hand. Hold it in the balance. Weigh it. What is it? 45, 55. What's a cipher means? Code. It's a code. Cipher means code, secret code. I want you to hold that in your hand. See? And the prime thing that would occur, if you recall this, I don't know if you do, but that when you held this and you said a zozio, and you held the cipher in your hand, then when this passageway opened up, you would meet 2 people. One of these people is the prime person that I would told you that you would meet, okay? And his name, or its name, because there's not a gender there. Samael. Samael will meet you. And I'll tell you something. Samael will stop you cold. Samael is not there to say, oh, Gloria, you made it. Samael is there to say, what are you doing here? What do you want? Then tell me. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you know. Because if you don't, you're going nowhere. But if you tell Samael what you know, what you want, Samael will move over to the left. And the pathway is clear. The ancient word, sama, means...
Me.
No, it doesn't mean means. It means... current. Would be appropriate in your circuit, wouldn't it? Samael is the opposer. Samael is the resistor. And in order to send the resistor out of the way so that you open the circuit, you practice what? The law. And what is the law? Om. Ohm's law. Now, tell you what we'll do. Let me show you something. Real quick. Could I have the... if you look, this is a... see if I can get this over here. A very, very ancient wheel. And you could see here, Chachma, wisdom, prudence, clemency, punishment, powers, fire, fiery realm, sulfur and salt, which is part of alchemy, Samael, like there's Samael. There's your, you're going to meet this guy. You're going to meet this guy. He's got a very important job. And this is not something, as you can see, this was not made. This comes from a very, very old book. This is a very, very ancient thing. And he doesn't fool with you. He's not going to fool with you. And you've got to be prepared to... so that's why a lot of people say, well, you know, I just want to go, and I just want to go, and I want to be lifted up into the, and be part of this, and I want to sing religious songs. Well, what are you going to do when you meet Samael? And you can say, what are you doing here? What do you want here? What's the code? Give me the password. Give me the password. Show me your key. Show me your key. Okay?
Interesting that the last 2 letters are EL on all of them.
Because they're angels. What is an angel? It's an angle. Of what? Current.
Right, that's right.
Would you turn the light on? Thank you. If you turn to page 60, and on page 60, There's a statement at the very top of the page from Blavatsky. As he passed over Penuel, which is the pineal gland, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Anyhow, his brother Esau is Samael. And the names Samael and Azazel and Satan are the same, the opposer. Now, what is interesting about that is a lot of people get really spooked about that kind of stuff. Oh, there's Satan. Satan's the serpent. The serpent. And what is contained in the serpent is the spine. And what does the spine contain? The 7 points of resistance. It is where the current flows through the resistors, which is the 7 resistors which you open up through Ohm, which is Ohm's law. I mean, why should this make so much sense? I mean, why does everything fall in where it's supposed to be? Now, if you look at Samael on page 60, current, opposition, resistance, and if you look at impedance, resists electric current flow, is impressed across its terminals, impedance expressed in ohms. Do you see it? I mean, is that just a coincidence to you that these people that sit and run the electrical energy up through the spine, up through the 7 chakras, sit and chant Ohm? Oh, well, that's just a coincidence. Silly. That's no coincidence. The most ancient sacred literature of Hinduism, the collections of the Rig Veda and the Samaveda. The Samaveda. They are known as the Samhitas, roughly collections. Samael will block your path. You have to know the symbol, which you do. You've got to say Azozio, and you must understand holding a 45-55 in your hand. You are weighing the separation to the plane of 45-55. Now, 45-55 is in the constellation Coma. 45-55 is a galaxy in the constellation Coma. And Coma is mother and child. It is Isis and Horus. It is Mary and Jesus. And it is in the zodiacal sign Virgo. Isaiah 7:14, the Lord shall give you a sign. What is the sign? A virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and call his name Emmanuel, which is God with us. Where's the virgin? Virgo. Where's the mother and child? Coma. What's in Coma? 45-55. I mean, there it is. And if you don't, people say, well, I don't know. Folks, what else can we do? There's a picture. There's a picture of 45-55. Thank you for that, John. But there's a picture of it. That's what it said. If it says somewhere in the Bible, if God came down the stairs, people would say, well, somebody better call the cops or something. This guy, what is this guy? This guy come off a spaceship. There's a picture of it. 45-55. That's the picture of it. And where is it? It's in the sign of the Virgin, the mother and child. It's not only in Virgo, the zodiac, but it is the mother. It's in Coma. It's the mother and child. And it fulfills the prophecy of the Scriptures. And there's a picture of it. I'm bringing you a picture of the place. If I brought you a picture of the Trump Plaza, oh, Jesus, terrific. I'm bringing you a picture of this. Now, and you can make it be whatever you want it to be. But if you turn your back on it, it's over. This is where we conclude. A couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Rich Doppler made a discovery. You want to leave that on? Okay, turned it off. Whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do. Yeah. Incidentally, let me just show you this real quick. Let me just show you this real quick. For those of you who, would you, Al? There is the astronomical thing on 45-55 galaxy. At right ascension, 12 minutes, 35 seconds. Declination, 26 degrees, 31. Okay, so there's the information about it. Now, come with me. I said the handwriting is on the wall. Wonder if you're situated here, and the Bible talks of a hand that appears without a body. Okay? A hand appears in front of people which is not attached to an arm. And the hand, that would be enough to say, what'd you put in the drinks, Joan? But the hand appears and begins to write on a wall. Its fingers are quivering. And look at page 728. We're out of here in 3 minutes, I promise you. Page 728. The quivering hand. And you know what I like? I love that all these people carry Bibles under their arms and they don't want to get involved in any of this far out stuff.
Yeah, right.
Tell me about it. Here's a quivering hand coming writing stuff on there. All right. Did you find this, what you're supposed to find? Look at Daniel, page 728, Daniel chapter 5 and verse 5. Everybody, real carefully now, because this work is good. In the same hour came forth the fingers of a man's hand and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. Now, go to verse 25. And it wrote in verse 25, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. Mene means number. Number. And it's emphasized twice, isn't it? Mene, Mene. Tekel means weigh. Do you remember when Jesus says, hold this number in your hand? Weigh it. And Farson means separation. The crucifixion. Could I have the lights, Mr. Cameraman? I hope you can all see this. God. You with me? M40, E5, N50, E5. Number. Hold it in your hand. 45, 55. The handwriting is on the wall. When Rich Doppler gets here next week, make a big fuss over him. Doppler? Yeah, Doppler effect, yeah. Okay, now what I wanted to tell you, incidentally, as you look at this, what I wanted to tell you as you look at this is understand that the numbers in Greek and Jewish or Hebrew are exactly the same. Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin is a Jewish word, and these letters that add up Mene, Mene, which is number, weigh it, and be separated from that, is 45, 55 in both Hebrew and Greek. 45, 55. Now, last thing I want to tell you. Can we have the lights, Mr. Lightman? Last thing I want to tell you is this. Are you ready? Notice where it says in verse 5, Daniel 5, verse 5, that it is written over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall. The candlestick is the spine. The candlestick is the spine. Please look at page 59 in the material that I gave you. And look at the word plaster. It is a mixture of gypsum, sand, water, and lime. Lime. Please turn real quickly, all right? Please turn real quickly to page 51 in the material that you have there. And if you look at page 51, you'll see the pineal body in the center. The pineal body in the center. It says in the third line, it is a glandular structure composed of follicles containing epithelial cells and lime concretions called brain cells. The pineal gland is lime. And this number, written by the disembodied hand, was written on the spine at the point of the pineal gland, and it wrote 4555. Number, weigh it, and divide yourself. Also interesting there on page 59 is the derivatives of plaster. Brings you not only that, but it brings you down to the word palm, which is palm of the hand, and a variant of the word planet. 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 So, now we know that indeed the handwriting is on the wall. And I don't know, but I think when you have such an occult statement in the Bible of a disembodied hand writing on the wall and writes number, and the number equates to 4555 and says to weigh it and divide, and that's pretty exciting, and writes it on the candlestick, which is your spine, at the point of the plaster, which is lime, which is the pineal gland of the brain. Pretty good, pretty significant, I would say. And as I say, as I rise up, did you see the cartoon out on the wall we've got out there? Take a look at it on your way out. There's a picture of a spaceship following Hale-Bopp, and the words are coming out of it. It says, "They did what?" We'll see you. Bye-bye.